and we will get going. For those of you who are new to this class style, as I focus on one pose and we build up to and break down that one position. You can all hear me all right? Yeah, awesome. Okay. So welcome everybody. Today's class is dedicated to Navasana, boat pose. So it's the position where you are balancing on your sit bones with your legs up in the air, your torso up in the air, kind of in a V position. So it's generally considered to be a very strong abdominal active pose, and it is. But what we miss often in this position is that it's really a requirement that we are engaging the entire core body in order to sustain it. So we can get into boat pose, most of us, with some degree of, ability to hold it, but many of us can't hold it for very long or with very good feelings about it, right? It starts to fatigue us very quickly. And that's generally because we're relying on only one portion of our core to be doing the work instead of the whole body. So when we talk about core and Navasana, boat poses, we're not just talking about your abdominals as you think of them, right, from your belly down to your pelvis, is we're also talking about those muscles that run through the legs that are stabilizing. So we're talking about your hip flexors, we're talking about your abductors, adductors, we're talking about a lot of muscles in the shoulders, right, that extend the spine, that help support the back. Because if we don't have that extension in both directions, both sides of the V, then the pose doesn't have that kind of balance, right? So the metaphor or the attitude of boat pose is that it requires incredible effort, but at the same time, that effort has to be relaxed if you want to be like a little boat, right, that balances on the waves. So that buoyancy is something that happens when we have that core activation really throughout the entire body. But if we're only doing it in one place, we're going to feel like the pose is very heavy and it's a struggle, right, to stay up there. So that's what we're practicing, is how to engage the entire core body and have that integration of upper body, lower body, so that we do have a sense of extension in both directions, but that it's easeful, right? That there's a feeling that you can relax there, even though there's a lot of effort that's involved, right? So comfortable seat, if you're not there already. Let the eyes close for a moment. And I really think, especially in this class format, that the idea is to really maintain the attitude of the pose as you're practicing, because that feeling of being able to be in focus, to be in effort, and still feel buoyant, to feel like you can ride on the top of those changing aspects of your life, is that that's a skill in and of itself. So I want you to feel your breath. And I want you to feel that there is the solidness of the body frame, the skeleton. And at the same time, the way the breath moves is that it is the reminder that there is constant lightness. So boat pose is a balancing pose. We're just not balancing on our hands or our feet. We're balancing on the sit bones, the back of the pelvis. So one more breath, feeling again that buoyancy of the inhale and not losing it on the exhale. So the inhale lightens and the exhale, don't collapse. And then bring the hands to the heart center, palm to palm. We'll open with the sound of Om. Deep breath in. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. Bring your hands to your knees or your thighs. Do a little seated cat-cow. And as you are moving forward and back with your breath, I want you to focus on that tilt of the pelvis. So on the inhale, your pelvis is tilting forward. Top of your pelvis is tilting forward as the lower spine arches. And as you're exhaling, you're tipping back, rolling back on towards the tailbone or towards the back of the pelvis. Good. So I want you to focus on that so that you can feel the relationship of how your pelvis is tilting with your thigh bones, right? If there's a feeling that either side or either leg gets a little bit more stuck than the other, has a little bit less fluid movement, pay attention to that. And can you also feel that as you're moving your pelvis, that there's a feeling of pressing through the leg? So it's almost like you are trying to suction the thigh bones up into the pelvis as you're rocking forward and back. So the thighs are never fully pulled away, like they're not attached to the pelvis, but there's a feeling of, as I rock my pelvis back and forth, my legs are the steady place that I'm rocking around, right? It's like the axis. Good. The whole spine is moving, but focus on that pelvic tilt. Because to be able to balance on your sit bones, you have to have a clear idea of where your sit bones are and what they feel like. So what you're rocking back and forth on right now are the edges of your sit bones. Good. And then come to what feels like a neutral position, please. Inhale the arms up to the sky. Interlace your fingers, press heels of the hands up. Good. Stretch. Pull through the armpits, pull through the arms. Nice. And then release the hands out and down. Good, you guys. So scoot forward, come onto your backs, please. Grab a block. Good. As you come onto your back, place the block to the side for a moment. You'll need it in a second. Bend your knees, plant your feet. Good. And then start to move yourself in and out of bridge. So as you inhale, lift the hips up to the sky, take your arms up alongside your ears until they come to the floor above your head. And then as you exhale, you're releasing the hips down to the floor, arms alongside you where you started. So you're inhaling the hips up into bridge, arms up alongside your ears. Good. And as you exhale, you're releasing the hips, releasing the arms. Good. So don't be lazy with your bridge pose just because you're moving in and out of it. Still try and find that full sense of lift, not just through the pelvis, but through the upper back and the upper spine as well. Good. Keep your feet, your heels rooted down to the floor. And there's a subtle kind of dragging back on the heels, which helps you to keep your spine really elongated. And so that every time you lift up and you release, you're getting a stretch through the thighs as well as the whole spine. Again, you don't have to move quickly here. Good. But the idea is that every lift up into bridge is, again, we're working with the openness of the pelvis and the legs. So as you inhale up, there's a stretch that happens through the front of the thighs. Good. And so we often start with poses that require a lot of muscular engagement, saying, well, you got to get those muscles strong, 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 which means that you have to contract, contract, contract. But a muscle that is habitually contracted is not stronger in the long run, right? It's less accessible the more it stays tight. So for the hip flexors to really be accessible, yes, they need to be engaged in certain ways so that they're able to fire the way you want them to, but they also have to be flexible. They also have to be available. Good. Next time your hips come down to the floor, stay there. Nice. And then grab your block. Good. Place the block between the upper thighs. Yep. And then lift your shins parallel to the floor. Good. So you're hugging the block between the thighs, knees right on top of your hips, shins parallel to the floor. So Joy, draw your knees towards your chest a little bit more. There you go. Good. So just finding that position of your shins literally 90 degrees with the floor can be challenging. And again, this is to make you aware of where your abdominal strength is and where the flexibility of your back starts to get in the way of that. All right. So just hang there for a moment, low back pressing down to the floor. So those lower abdominals already have to do a little bit of work. Good. And then point your toes here just because. Good. And you're going to keep that block between the shins and you're going to bring your toes forward. You're going to keep your knees bent at the same angle, but dip your toes down towards the floor just to touch. So no weight there. Bring your toes down to the floor to touch like you're dipping them in water. Good. And then bring them right back up to 90 degrees. Good. Just to there, Lydia, no further. Good. And then bring them forward again. Don't let your ribs pop up. Toes touch down to the floor. Keep those low abdominals zipped up and in. And then pull those thighs into the hip socket as they come up. Good. Keep going like that, bringing the toes forward down to the floor. Keep that low belly engaged, low rib cage drawing down. And then it's the thighs pulling into the hip socket. So that means down into the floor as you come up. Good. So part of the idea here is that your legs have to do some of this work. It's not just your abdominals. Good. Nice. Keep breathing. If you're forgetting to exhale, you're missing the point. Good. Nice, you guys. Do one more. Toes dip to the floor, no weight. And then right back up to 90 degrees and stay. Good. Now stretch your legs straight up to the sky, still hugging that block. Nice. Stretch your arms up to the sky. Good. So your arms are right in line with your shoulders. Again, that might not feel like it's normal. So you might have to take those arms a little higher up towards the top of your head and then pull down. So pull your arms down into the shoulder socket. So you press wide through the back of your shoulder blades, draw down through your front rib cage. And then again, take your thighs just a tiny bit more away from your belly and press your low back down to the floor. Good. So you're lengthening or you're connecting through that whole back side of the body. And now you can feel what the front side of the body has to do in order to maintain that. Good. Press out through those heels, please. So you're squeezing the block, press out through your heels. Good. Keep pressing out through your heels like you're really trying to take those legs to straight. Nice. And then bring the knees back in towards the chest. Release the hands. Release the block. Good. Squeeze the knees all the way in towards the chest. Scoot your hips over to the left, drop your knees to the right, spinal twist. Good, let the arms go wide, keep the knees on top of each other. So with the knees really stacked on top of each other, you're making sure that the both sides of your pelvis are staying in relationship with each other, that they're staying equal. So if the knees come out of alignment, it's also going to mean that your hip points are going to be out of alignment. And we want the area of the lower back and the pelvis to be very symmetrical so that when we're trying to balance on it, we're not dealing with the difference between how the right side and the left side are working, right? So Joanne, knees up towards your chest just a little bit more. There you go, because it's going to give you a little bit more stretch to the lower back. Nice. Come back up to center, you guys. Scoot your hips over to the right, drop your knees to the left. So what you also just heard me say is that the lower back needs to have some flexibility here in order to be able to balance and have the legs extended. So of course we do boat pose often with the knees bent. One, because it feels easier to do. Well, why does it feel easier? Because to have the legs fully extended is more work muscularly, but it also requires your lower back to have more flexibility. Good. So we have to work whole spine, whole back side of the body in order for boat pose to be sustainable. So it's not just about your belly. It's not just about your abdominals. Good. Come back to center, please. Nice. Place your feet back down to the floor. Take your block, lift your butt, place the block underneath your sacrum. And so there's 3 heights that you can put your block. I'd like for you to put the block on the second setting, even if that's not usually what you do. So not the flattest one, but the next one up. Good. Yeah, and if that feels already like, oh, that's more stretch in my back than usual, breathe into that. Again, if it feels like it's causing pain, turn the block back down. But the idea here is to get into the stretch of the back and the stretch of the front of the thighs. Good. Nice, you guys. Keep pressing into your heels. Joy, don't let your knees splay wide. Keep them pointing straight ahead. Good. And as you press into your heels here, you guys, again, exaggerate the pelvic tilt. So tilt the top of your pelvis forward away from your ribs. It's going to feel like you're arching your low back a lot, almost like you're going to fall off of the block, but I want you to exaggerate it. Good. So yeah, tilt, tilt, tilt forward with the front of the pelvis. Good. So you get that stretch through the belly. You get the stretch through the back. And at the same time, pressing your heels down and dragging back, see if you can feel the thighs, again, energetically, maybe even physically, falling back into the hip socket. Good. Nice, you guys. And then maintain this. Make sure that you're stable on the block, but take the right leg up to the sky. Good. But keep tilting your pelvis. Yep. Good. So of course, when we're in boat pose, we're not going to be in an arched spine like this, but I want you to feel this relationship of what you do with your pelvis and how you engage with your legs. So pull that right thigh into the hip socket, and with the power of that leg, pull it up all the way to the sky. Yeah, this is working the lower abdominals. Good. And then release that foot down to the floor. Nice job. Right foot plants. Make sure it's in a good position. Left leg to the sky. I know you think that this should be easier because you've got your butt on a block, and in some ways it is. But at the same time, it lets you focus on what the leg is doing in relation to the pelvis. So the pelvis is tilting forward. Good. Just watch that block, Lydia, that you don't actually fall off of it. Good. And then the power of that left thigh is that it has to pull up and in. So you have to actually drag it into the hip socket as you tilt the pelvis forward. Good. And then release that foot down to the floor. Nice job, you guys. So again, reset yourself so that you're very stable on that block. If you need to turn it down one setting, go ahead, because I want you to take both legs up to the sky. So again, making sure that you are stable on the block before you lift your legs, take your legs up. Good. So same sort of feeling here, right? That you're tilting the pelvis. So you're finding that whole forward action so that you get really wide through the sacrum and the thigh bones can settle back in, but now you're stretching up through the legs. Good. And now feel what your ribs are doing here. Obviously, they're going to be in a little bit more of an arched position, but in this position, without changing your pelvis, can you draw your low rib cage down and in? Feel yourself expand through the back of your rib cage, through the upper back. Good, without pulling your legs in anymore. I know, so take your thighs further away, Lydia. Yep, keep that pelvic tilt and work the rib cage down and in. Nice. Stretch up through your legs. One more breath. Good. And then release the legs back down to the floor, the feet back down to the floor. Nice. Lift your hips up off of the block. Place the block to the side. Good. And then hug your knees in towards your chest. Roll forward and back on your spine. So rolling like a little ball or rolling like an egg. Good. So you're already playing with the concept of boat pose with this. So as you come up, try and find that edge of your sit bones and maybe you balance for a second. Good. And then let yourself roll again. Good. Stay rounded in your spine as you are rolling. So try and maintain the frame of your body. So it's like the body is not changing its shape. It's just rolling back and forth. And then you find that balance point of your sit bones and you just hover there. And then you let yourself roll again. Good. Nice, Lauren. And then the next time you come up, find yourself in a seated position, please. Nice, you guys. Roll forward onto hands and knees. Good. Downward facing dog. Beautiful. Take the right leg up and back behind you. Down dog split. Beautiful. Again, kicking that thigh a little bit higher up into the air. Yep. And then, bring your knee forward towards your nose, armpits over your wrists. Good. So move the whole spine forward. And as that knee is squeezing in. Good. Now try and pull your butt up and back as you keep the thigh pulling forward. Yep. Thigh pulling forward, but butt up and back. Yeah. Yep. You feel that kind of squeezing, sucking in you have to do through the lower abdominals. That's what you do in boat pose. Take the right leg up and back, down dog split. Good. Bend the knee, take your heel in towards your butt, stack right hip on top of left, open. Keep your left armpit lifted and wide so that you're really getting the whole side body length in your twist. And so that you're really drawing back through that right thigh so that you're pulling it long. Good. Because again, we want the hip flexors, we want the front of the thigh to be really open and accessible. Good. And then point the knee back down to the floor. Bring your knee forward towards your nose one more time. Armpits over your wrists, squeeze in. Good. And as that thigh pulls forward, knee pulls forward, try and pull your hips up and back. Squeeze your hands and your left foot towards each other. Good. But now pull your knee forward again, Joy. Pull your knee forward, Lydia. Good. And then take that leg up and back, down dog split. And then bend the knee one more time, heel in, stack right hip on top of left. Left armpit stays lifted, so you have to resist. Good. And pull that thigh back. Pull your knee back. Get long. Awesome. And then release that foot down to the floor, please. Good. Drop down to your knees. Do a little hip circling. Again, freedom of the pelvis makes a big difference for this pose. Freedom of the spine makes a big difference. Nice. And then drop yourself back to child's pose, knees wide, big toes together to touch, drop the hips to your heels. Good. So rather than simply doing crunches or something like that, thinking that you have to get the abdominal muscles stronger, it's getting the long muscles of the body stronger that's going to make this pose more realistic, more sustainable. So it's really about your legs. It's really about how you integrate the legs with your back. And the abdominals are a support for that connection. So they have to be able to be awake, but they're not the only thing that needs to be awake. Walk yourself back up, hands and knees, downward facing dog. Good. So imagine you are in boat pose and you are balancing on your sit bones and your arms are alongside your ears. And then you flip it upside down. It looks a lot like downward facing dog. So give your knees a bend here for a second, thighs pull towards your ribs, and then pull your butt back in space. So get into just the length of your spine. So bend the knees a lot, drop your butt towards your heels. Good. Notice if you're arching your lower back. If you are, you've got to pull the low belly away from your thighs. You've got to draw your lower rib cage in. So make space between your belly and your thighs, even though your knees are bent. Good. And you're pulling long through your spine. Awesome. Now take your hips up to the sky without losing any of that. Straighten the legs. Pull up onto the tippy toes of your feet. Good. Squeeze your arms together and pull your armpits up towards the sky. Good. So it's like you're trying to take all of your weight out of your hands and your feet, and you're trying to pull it all the way up through your abdominals, through your pelvis. So squeeze in and pull up. And then feel that you are pulling your belly and your thighs away from each other. But that squeezing in of your hands and feet mean that they can't go too far. So you're creating this incredible stability because you're squeezing and pushing away, integrating all into one point, the pelvis, and then soften your heels and lengthen through your throat. Good. Beautiful down dogs. Left leg up and back behind you. Down dog split. Good. Bring the knee forward towards your nose, armpits over your wrist, squeeze in. And as you squeeze that thigh forward, so really work that pulling forward, now pull your hips back. Good, like you're taking your hips back towards down dog, but keeping that thigh forward. Nice, and then take it up and back, down dog split. Bend the left knee, heel in towards your butt, stack the left hip on top of the right. Good, keep your right armpit lifted and open so that you're not losing the actual rotation of your pelvis. So you're lifting through that thigh, but you don't want your hips to just totally fling to the side. Good. Point the knee back down towards the floor. Bring that knee forward towards your nose one more time. Round. Good. And as you pull that thigh in, and forward, pull your hips up and back. Yeah. It's that double action that has to happen in boat pose in order for it to feel like it's not all on one muscle group. Take the left leg up to the sky. Bend the knee. Stack left hip on top of right. Good. Again, right armpit stays lifted and wide. Are you still breathing? Because if you forget to breathe in boat, you become infinitely heavier. Just saying. Good. And then release that leg down to the floor. Nice job. Drop down to your knees. Do some hip circling the other direction from what you did before. So whatever your instinct is, do the opposite. Because we always go the same way. Instinctually, we do it the same way every time. Good. And then drop your hips back to your heels, child's pose. Again, breathing through the back of the body, through the spine. Awesome. And then come on up to hands and knees. Step your feet back to plank pose, upward push-up. Great way for working whole body, core engagement, plank pose. So you're squeezing your hands and feet towards each other. Bring your armpits forward right on top of your wrists. There you go. Yep, don't be afraid of it. Go there. Good. And then the low ribs are drawing in, and I want you to feel like the tops of your thighs are pulling forward and up, like you're lifting your front hip points. The front of your pelvic bones are actually tilting up towards your ribs. Good. So it's going to feel almost like you're trying to tuck your tail, but then you're extending through your spine so much that you don't actually tuck your tail. So chest up and wide, Lauren. Good. Collarbones up and wide. That's it. Yep. And then inner thighs pull up. Keep breathing. I know. You're just here. There's nothing fancy with this. This is just literally feel your whole body having to work to sustain the spine. Good. One more breath. You can drop your hips a little lower, Kristen. That means walk your feet back a little more. And then drop your hips a little lower. That's it. And then lower down to your belly. Don't collapse. Good job. Good. Point your toes back behind you. Please rise up, cobra. So press the hands alongside your ribs. Lift up head, neck, and chest. Good. And then again, if your arms are really straight, bend your elbows a little bit more. So drop down a little bit, drag back on your hands. So you get that pull forward through your spine, like you're trying to drag yourself along the floor like an army crawl. You're trying to drag your chest, trying to drag your legs. Good. And then from that dragging, lift up head, neck, and chest again, but don't straighten your arms. Push into your hands, but don't straighten the arms. Just pull the chest up. Nice, Joanne. Good. Feel your thighs pulling forward and up. Feel your low back having to work a little bit. Good. And then release back to your belly, please. Nice. Stretch your arms, reaching back towards your feet. Press through the front of your pelvis. So again, you want to feel like those hip points are lifting forward towards your ribs first, but then that front edge of the pelvis is also drawing down towards the floor. So it's a little sweeping action of the front of the pelvis, drawing forward and up. Good. Towards the floor and towards your ribs. And then you're extending the legs back, lift the legs up off of the floor, coming into locust pose. And then fingers stay on the floor, begin to lift head, neck, and chest. So locust, Joy, keep the legs straight back behind you. Don't reach for the feet. Good. Head, neck, and chest lift. Yeah. Widen through the chest, pull the armpits up and back, then float the arms up off the floor as well. Nice long throat. Beautiful. Squeeze those shins towards each other, Joy. One more breath. Whole body, ribs in. Front of pelvis reaches for your ribs. And then release. Nice job. Stretch your arms forward in front of you alongside your ears. Same position, pressing through the front of the pelvis. Lift the legs up off the floor. Good. You can keep fingertips on the floor for a moment. Press into the hands to lift head, neck, and chest. So again, connection between your ribs and the front of your pelvis. So even though this is technically a back bend, it's back extension, right? Is you want to keep that front body connection of ribs and pelvis. Float your arms up alongside your ears. And then you're going to kick your feet up and down and move your hands up and down. They say like you're swimming. I know it's not how you actually swim, but pump your hands up and down, kick your feet up and down. Good. So Joy, both, instead of just lifting and lowering both at the same time, there you go. Yep. Cross body, alternating. Good. Try and keep your legs as straight as you can here, you guys. This is your inner thighs working. So this is the connection of the legs to the pelvis. I don't want your knees bending because then you're just moving flailing your feet. Whole leg, whole pelvis. It's going to be difficult. Good. Feel your back engage. Feel your navel drawing up away from the floor. Buoyancy. Stay breathing. Good. Nice, Susan. And then inhale, lift everything. Pull out, extend, and then try and squeeze your legs and your arms into the core of your body, even though you're still lifted. Pull in. And then release. Nice, you guys. I know. So these are the things I would suggest to you, right? If you're trying to create the kind of full body toning or strength that is required for boat pose or plank or any really intense core activating poses, is do this. Because you need there to be the relationship of your back body and your front body for any of those more complicated poses to work. This is great practice for inverting as well, to be working this connection. Good. Press up to hand. Don't press up to hands and knees. Flip over onto your backs. I'm almost done torturing you. Almost, but not yet. Good. Take your legs up to the sky. Yep. So same position you were in before. Draw those low ribs down and in. Yeah, so you feel the back. You can even come into cactus arms here or take the arms out wide, straight out from your shoulders and push down so that you have a clear sense of what your upper body is doing. All right, so keep the ribs in. Keep the lower abdominals, again, zipped up. Good. And then you're keeping the right leg straight up towards the ceiling. Start to drop your left leg down towards the floor so it hovers just in a couple of inches above the floor, or to whatever angle is accessible without your ribs popping up. Good. And then take that leg back up to straight ahead or straight up and down. Good. Now the left leg stays up. Drop the right leg out and down. No swinging the legs. It's very controlled. You're pausing there and pulling that thigh in as it extends. And then bring it all the way back up, both legs to the sky. Same thing, left leg drops. Keep reaching out through the right heel so there's equal extension. And then bring that leg back up, again, working from internally. What are the abdominals doing? What is the low belly doing? Left leg drops. Good. If you feel this happening in your legs a lot, you got to really root down through the lower back. You can always bend the knees and do that toe dip if this feels like it's a little too much. So keep alternating. Good. Don't swing the pelvis when you bring the legs up. That's important, that you're really working, again, the nuance or the control of what your legs are doing in relationship to your upper body. Nice, you guys. Some of you, I'm sure, are counting how many you've done. You haven't done that many. So if it feels like you're getting fatigued already, you know what part of your body is not habitually staying awake. Good. After you've completed your next one, legs up to the sky, arms up to the sky. Good. Stretch through your heels. Pull your thigh bones down and in. So push through your lower spine and try and find where more of your lower back finds the floor. So it might feel like a little bit of that forward tilt happens first, and then you draw the ribs back and in to bring the pelvis more into neutral, and draw those armpits down and extend through your fingers. And now press through the crown of your head. Nice. So again, whole body extension. And then hug the knees in towards your chest. You got it, Susan. Yeah, it was nothing complicated. And then bring your knees wide, come into happy baby. Reach for the ankles or the shins or the feet. Good. Keep your low back pressing down to the floor. Good. Keep your shoulders widening and reaching for the floor. Again, lower back has to be accessible if you want this pose to work, or if you don't want it to feel miserable. One more breath. And then draw the knees back in towards your chest. Good. Squeeze in, roll forward and back. Again, trying to find that feeling that there's the frame of your body, and you're trying to maintain that frame so that as you roll forward and back, it's actually the internal muscles, the back and the abdominals, and even into the legs that are doing that work. So you're not just using momentum to swing forward and back. Good. You can do that little balance point when you've got it. And then what I would love for you to try is, you can give yourself a little momentum for this one, is to roll forward and back, and then prepare yourself to, as you come forward, plant your feet, roll yourself straight up into chair. Plant your feet and lift your butt straight into chair. Go. Yeah, no hands was the idea. Close enough. Good. Find your way into chair however you can. Nice, Kristen. Good job. You got it, Joanne. Go, 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 go. Yes, yes, yes. Almost. Nice. Find chair. That's okay. This is what you practice, right? This is what you practice all week so that the next time I ask you to do this, you've got it. Drop your hips low. Interlace your fingers. Press your heels of your hands beyond the crown of your head. Stretch out. Pull your ribs in. Lift your belly up off of your thighs. And now push your butt back as you extend your heart forward, but ribs in. Keep turtling into that space below your bra line or below your shoulder blades. Pull that back and in. Nice. And then come all the way up to stand. Keep stretching through the heels of the hands. Extend, extend, extend. Little baby back bend if you'd like. Good. And then exhale, release the hands down to the floor. Beautiful. Step your right leg back just enough so that both feet can come flat. Parsvottanasana. Use blocks under the hands if you'd like. So left foot is forward, right foot is back. Good. Feet hip width. Nice. Make sure that that outer right hip, so your back hip is spinning forward. Good. And then a long spine here, you guys. So again, the purpose of doing this pose in preparation is so that there is that availability through your hamstrings and through your lower back and even into your middle back. Good. Because again, muscles that are chronically tight are not stronger. So you can work a muscle repetitively and it will build up strength. It'll build up flexibility or blah, blah, blah. It'll build up strength and it'll build up ability, right, to do work. And maybe even your mind starts to get clearer on how to activate that muscle. But if it stays tight, it becomes less available. The flexibility of your lower back and your pelvis makes tremendous difference. And that means that both sides of the pelvis need to have attention paid to the back and to the legs. Good. One more breath where you are. Nice. And then switch the legs, please. Take the right leg forward, left leg back. Make sure your feet are as wide as your hips so they're not in line with each other. Outer edge of the back hip is spinning forward. So there's an internal rotation of that left hip point. So again, we're looking at the right and left side of the pelvis being in line with each other. And again, when you start doing that, if there is an imbalance, a habitual imbalance, which most of us have, is you'll start to just become aware of it, is which leg is tighter in the hip socket, right? Which leg or which hip wants to pull back or wants to fall forward. Again, it's just useful to know because the leg that sits less comfortably in the hip socket is the one that's going to feel like it doesn't engage as well when you try to go into a pose like boat. So it's going to feel like it's more work on that side. Good, nice, Lauren. Just send your left hip spinning forward a little bit more and then scoop that lowest part of your belly, push your sacrum up. Yeah, good, left rib cage spins forward too. Nice, you guys. Good, and then bend that right knee again. Take your left foot forward alongside the right, standing forward fold. Good. And then bend the knees back into chair. Take the arms up alongside your ears. Good. Hands to heart center. Prayer twist. Left elbow to the outside of the right knee. If prayer twisting doesn't feel like it's available for the spine, then left hand to the outside of the right knee and right hand to your lower back. Good. But press your shins wide. Again, scooping into the low belly. Lift your belly up off your thighs. Drop your butt more and try and extend your spine longer. So lift your chest and pull your armpits towards each other. Nice. Come back to center, please. Straighten the legs, forward fold. Good. Pressing into the feet, sending the pelvis high to the sky as you press through your heels. So bend your knees just a little bit. Drop into your heels more. Put more weight in your heels. Good. And then keep that there as you scoop your belly and push your butt back up to the sky. Straighten the legs. Good. Hands stay to the floor or wherever they stay. Good. And then bend your knees again. Drop into chair. Arms up alongside your ears. Nice. So the weight falls back towards your heels a little bit more, Lydia. Butt goes back a little more. There you go. The more your knees don't go forward, the less pressure there'll be on your knees. Hands to heart center. Prayer twist, right elbow to the outside of the left knee. Or what, that should be the other side. If it's not, correct me. Good. Widen those inner shins. Good. Again, weight in your heels. Nice. And then you're lifting your belly up off of your thighs. You're lengthening your spine as much as you can. So don't only focus on the twist aspect, focus on how long can my spine get and sustain, right? If you're squeezing too much into your legs, you're missing the point of the pose. Butt goes back, chest lifts. Awesome. Nice, Kristen. And then come back to center, release the hands to the floor, straighten the legs and bow. Good. Step your right leg back behind you. Nice long lunge, drop the back heel, baby toe parallels the back of your mat. Cartwheel the arms up through warrior two. Good, so warrior two, Joy. Nice, top of that right thigh goes back in space. So slide it back again so that you get a little bit more into that feeling of the hip flexors. lengthening, but also not pushing forward, which is basically them being in a stuck position, a contracted position. Good. So lean forward parallel to the floor. So not towards the top of your mat, but literally forward from your pelvis. So your chest is paralleling the floor. Good. Lean forward. Parallel your chest to the floor. Good. So your butt's going to pop out behind you. There you go. So some of you are seeing me. Some of you are not. So look for a second. Warrior two, forward. Yeah, but facing the side, Susan. There you go. Absolutely. We got it. Nice. So squeeze that left butt cheek back and in. And again, top of that right thigh pulls up and in. You got to squeeze your feet towards each other. Awesome. Now bring your tail, lift your hip points up towards the ceiling, start to drop your tail straight down, round into your back ribs, and uncurl yourself to come back up into warrior two, but do it from your pelvis. Front of the pelvis lifts up, rib cage curls back, rounded back until you uncurl to come all the way up to stand. Nice. And see if your pelvis feels the same as it did before. Nope. Good. Straighten your front thigh. The point was for it to not feel the same. Good. Try to maintain that same position of your pelvis as you come into triangle pose. So those hip points are lifting up, the tail is dropping, and your rib cage is moved back in space. Extend forward with the left arm, left rib cage, and then let that hand come down to rest, front leg floor or block, right arm to the sky. Remembering that you are trying to lift those hip points up, letting the tail lengthen, and drawing your front rib cage back. So it's the relationship between the pelvis and the ribs. Good. So even here, you're working core stability, and then squeeze your legs towards each other. So yes, you're pressing into your feet, but feel that you are pulling your thighs up into that apex of the triangle, which is your pelvis. So you push through the front foot, but you push into it in order to pull up. Good. Nice, Lydia. Nice, Mark. Throat back a little more. Ribs back a little more. That's it. Beautiful, you guys. Bend the left knee, release the hands down to the floor. Good. Spin your back heel up, drop the right knee. Anjaneyasana, use a blanket there if you'd like. Inhaling the arms up to the sky. Good. Pressing through that front heel, drag back. So again, this is to work the hip flexor flexibility. So as that right thigh, as your pelvis moves forward and you stretch through the front of that right thigh, let the pelvis go deep, and then try and pull your butt back towards your right heel just a little bit. Good. So as the pelvis goes forward, you try and push your butt back, and then you're sliding, you're pulling that right thigh bone up and into the hip socket. So it shouldn't be hard in the front of your right thigh. If you go and press in there and you're like, oh my God, I'm totally locked, you got to bring your butt back more. Good. Nice, Lydia. One more breath. And then release the hands down to the floor. Nice job. Lift the back knee. Downward facing dog. Good. You generally say every pose requires, think of this down dog as boat pose, but upside down. So squeeze feet and hands towards each other, pull belly and thighs away from each other, and pull everything up into that apex that is your pelvis. Pull your pelvis up, 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 up. Suck everything in, ribs in, thighs in. And then make sure that you can breathe. Good. And then release the heels. Right foot steps forward between the hands. Good job, you guys. Good. Drop the back heel. Baby toe parallels back of your mat. Come into warrior two, second side. Good. And so again, in your warrior two, you're pointing the knee at the second toe. You're doing what you normally do. And then I want you to lean forward from your pelvis so that your torso is paralleling the floor like you have airplane arms. So you're not moving towards the front thigh. You're just leaning straight forward from your pelvis. That's it. You got it. So as you lean forward, now you have to really work through your legs. So squeeze that right butt cheek back and in. So your knee, that's going to help your knee point towards the second toe. Good. And you want to feel like that left thigh is internally rotating. So you're squeezing the feet towards each other. Now round into your back. So you're lifting your hip points up towards your belly, dropping the tail, rib cage round. So like you're doing cat. Good. And then start to uncurl yourself from your pelvis. So as you start to lift the shoulders, lift the ribs, stay rounded, keep lifting those hip points, dropping the tail straight down. So as you come up, there's a openness to the pelvis that maybe wasn't there before. The legs can slide in to the pelvis a little bit more. The pelvis is an open place. Good. Nice, you guys. And then try and maintain that, start to straighten the front thigh towards triangle. Good. So Lydia, I was just noticing that you need your warrior two legs to be longer so that your knee is able to be over the ankle, but not beyond the ankle. It's probably also aggravating your knee. Good. And then extend out through that right side body, everybody. Come down to triangle, but keep that feeling that you're lifting the hip points up and you're sending your tail long behind you, and rib cage draws in and back. So round into your middle back a little bit more, like you're doing cat, round. It feels completely counterintuitive to what you think you should be doing here, but round. And then open the chest a little bit more and pull from your tail to the crown of your head. And squeeze the legs up to the apex of your pelvis. Squeeze the energy of your legs up and in. Good. What you might feel when you do that, the legs are super engaged, the torso is super engaged, is that you start to feel more weightless. And then go ahead and bend the knee, release the hands to the floor. If that didn't happen yet, that's okay. Keep practicing. Lift your back heel, drop the back knee. Anjane asana, use a blanket underneath the knee if you need. Inhale the arms to the sky. But this is the thing, right? Is that buoyancy, the inner buoyancy, happens when we have a lot of internal integrated muscle engagement. Not just one muscle group doing a bunch of work, but all of the muscles of the body actually working together to hold the weight of the body and to work against gravity, right? That's what balancing is, right? So squeeze that front heel towards the back knee. Let your pelvis go a little deeper into the position so that you get that long stretch on the left thigh. And then when you've gone as deep as you think that you're going to go, then pull the low belly in, lift your hip points up again, send your butt back towards your back heel just a little bit. Good. And then lift your chest a little higher because now you have the room to do so. And squeeze that front heel down and back. Nice, Joanne. Nice, Joy. Beautiful. So watch that knee over the ankle again, Lydia, front knee. And then come all the way back up. Release the hands down to the floor. Nice job. Lift the back knee, downward facing dog. Good. Again, squeezing feet and hands towards each other. Really pull everything up. So even coming onto the tippy toes of your feet, pull up into your pelvis. And squeeze the arms and squeeze the legs in and up. So you're pulling your arms into the shoulder socket. You're pulling your thighs up into the pelvis. Good. Throat lift so it's in line with your ears. Oh, sorry. So your ears are in line with your arms is what I meant. Good. And then release the heels, release the knees, child's pose. I know all of this work for silly old boat pose. But what's crazy, right, is that if you do boat pose and you try and hold it for any length of time, boat pose is a ton of work. Whole body integrated core activity is a ton of work. But it's only a ton of work because we don't do it often. We don't hold and sustain one position and try and maintain that buoyancy, the lightness. Swimmers do. If you're a habitual swimmer, swimmers are often very good at this because that's what being in the water is, right? So the attitude of the pose, boat pose, is exactly that. How do you maintain that buoyancy when conditions are always changing? How do you stay internally engaged, even though in the beginning it feels like a lot of effort to do that? Walk yourself back up, please. Come to sit, take your legs out in front of you. And then bend your knees. Sitting on your butt, bend your knees. Feet out in front of you. And you're gonna cross your right ankle on top of your left thigh. So it's like you're doing like a seated pigeon pose almost. So right ankle crosses over left thigh. Left foot is on the floor. Good, left knee is bent. So bend both knees, Lydia. Yep, so it's like you're doing pigeon on your back, but you're sitting up. There you go. Flex the foot a lot, hands behind you. So you are allowed to use your hands here, hands behind you. And I want your hands behind you so that your hands are the way that you start to lengthen your upper back. So you got to look here, what part of your pelvis are you currently on? Are you sitting way far back behind the edge of your sit bones, or are you on the actual edge of your sit bones? So for most of us, we need to do a little forward tilt to get to the edge of our sit bones. Do that first. Yep, that's going to challenge already the lower back and the hips. Flex your feet. And then as you press into your hands behind you, use that to start to lift your chest higher, lift your spine longer. Good. And you can absolutely focus here on how do I squeeze my left foot, the foot that's on the ground. I can dig it down and draw it back. So again, it's helping to integrate that leg into the pelvis as I tilt my pelvis slightly forward. And then I can scoop in and up through my low belly, lift my hip points, draw my ribs back and in. So I'm moving my belly away from my thighs. Sounds like a lot of things I've already said today, right? But now here you're like, it's not easy to do. And the more you want to feel this, or the more intense you want it to be, just walk your foot in a little bit closer, your left foot in a little bit closer, and pull your chest forward a little bit more. So if you're very flexible in the lower back and the hips, you can probably just basically fold yourself in half here. But the idea is to find the pelvic tilt and keep flexing the feet and keep trying to find where you are integrating the legs into the pelvis. Good. And then for fun, right, keep your hands on the ground, keep your chest lifted, lift your legs up off the floor with the ankle crossed. So like you're trying to do boat pose, but your hands are on the floor. Just work with the legs. You got to pull your left thigh in, keep bending the knee, pull the thigh in. There you go. Again, if the lower back and the hips are tight, this is going to be challenging. You're still balancing on the edge of your sit bones. Try not to roll back too far. That's what your hands are for. Good. And then slowly release. Come on back up. Unwind the legs. Stretch your legs straight out in front of you. Geez Louise, macaroni and cheese, as my daughter would say. Flex your feet. Inhale the arms up to the sky. Paschimottanasana, reach towards your feet. Good. I'm kind of already giving you, right? You've already done one or two variations of what you would call boat pose. Walk yourself back up, please. Good. Try the other side. Bend both knees, plant your feet, and then take your left ankle on right thigh. Yes. The other leg. Again, being aware that you want to be able to feel both sides of your sit bones, even though you are in a uneven position with your legs, you still want to be able to feel both sit bones. And you are rolling slightly forward. And again, that forward tilt, it might challenge the back a little bit, but that slight tilting forward is going to take you out of the pelvic tilt that is going to be harder to balance in. And it's actually going to allow the legs to integrate into the pelvis more easily. So it's challenging what is maybe habitually tight in your structure, but it's actually making your legs more available to you. So the hands are behind you, chest is lifted. So try not to hunch into those shoulders. The idea is to push into the hands to lengthen your spine. And then again, belly moves away from your thighs, tilting the pelvis just a little bit, pull the ribs back and in so that you are connecting. Good. And you can always make it more intense by dragging that right heel down and in so you get closer into the body. You can make it more intense by tilting more forward on your pelvis and pressing through the arms. Nice, Joy. You can make it as intense as you want, but don't make yourself miserable, right? The attitude of the pose is to stay in that state that's really buoyant and light. So if you make the pose a misery, you've missed the point. Good. And then hands stay on the floor. Lift your right shin up off the floor. So again, that finding a little bit of the balance, it's harder in this pose. This is harder than doing regular boats. So if it's really difficult, you're right. Pull that right knee in, lift your chest. Try not to fall back into your hands. Push into the hands to keep your chest up. Nice, Lauren. You can lift that right shin higher. That's it. Good. I know this is working your hip flexors. And then slowly release and unwind the legs. Good job. Stretch your legs straight out in front of you. Let your legs go wide or wider, if not a full straddle, at least as wide as your mat. Good. Here, if you need a blanket or want a blanket underneath your seat, use it. Good. And then start to walk yourself forward, please. Find your forward fold, sending your inner thighs rotating down towards the floor. Press the heels down. Nice. So again, the slightly wider leg means that it's going to be a little bit more of opening on the outer hips that just maybe did a lot of work in that position. Opening for the lower back. And then in that forward fold, please reach your right hand to your right ankle or foot, left hand to left ankle or foot. Good. So this won't work quite so well, Mark, with a block underneath you. So you might have to move the block. Good. So holding the feet. Nice long arms, so lift your chest, straighten your arms, and pull those arms into your shoulder socket. So nice long spine, press your heels down, pull your thighs up into your pelvis to keep your butt rooted to the floor. So you're just reaching for your feet, Lauren, right hand to right foot, left hand to left foot. There you go, but reach for your feet physically. And then bend your elbows and come deeply into that forward fold again. I know you can go straight down into that, but pull your arms into your shoulder socket anyway. Press your butt down to the floor. Good. Work the extension of your spine. So bend your elbows. Good. Get your chest open. So you're working the arms a little bit. Nice, you guys. Good, Susan. And then slowly come on up. Beautiful. And bring the legs back towards each other. Okay. Right leg straight out in front of you. Pull your left knee in towards your chest. Good. Lift that foot up off the floor. And then reaching for the ankle or the foot or behind the thigh, extend your left leg straight out in front of you. Good. So you're still balancing on the pelvis. You can use both hands if you can. So Lydia, just take your, so right leg down to the floor straight. Pull your left knee up into your chest. So the left leg is lifting off of the floor and straightening out in front of you, off the floor. There you go. Good. Yeah, so switch your legs, Mark. Right leg down to the floor. Pull your left knee in and then lift your left foot off of the floor. No, right leg stays on the floor. Only the left leg extends straight out in front of you. Hold the foot. There you go. And now straighten the leg. You got it. Straighten the leg. Oh, one more deep breath, you guys. Lift your chest. Press down and back through your seat. Good. And then slowly release. I know. Notice when you came down how much you tilted forward in order to feel like you're sitting up straight. That's how far back you tilted backwards on your pelvis to make that work. Try the other side. Left leg extends in front of you. Draw the right knee in towards your chest. And then reaching for the foot or the ankle or behind the thigh, extend that leg straight out in front of you. Lift it as high as it will go. Maybe I forgot to say that last time, is that it's lifted as high as it will go. And then you're tilting forward towards the front edge of your pelvis and you're pulling that right thigh bone up and in. So it's like you're trying to still fold forward towards that leg, which means that you've got to work through your pelvis. Good. This is preparing for that moment in boat pose when you are balancing on your sit bones and both legs are straight. Good. And then slowly let it go. Come on out. Beautiful. Bend both knees. Take your fingertips back behind you, just touching the floor, just like you did before. If you were up on a blanket here, move the blanket so that you can feel your sit bones. Good. Again, find that front edge of your sit bones, whatever that felt like. I don't want you to get in the habit of coming into boat by rolling backwards and then having to roll forwards. That's harder to do, right? So find your fingertips, round into your back ribs just a little bit. So round your ribs first, pull your belly away from your thighs. Good. And then once you found that on your sit bones, lift your shins parallel to the floor. Good. So you're finding the balance with your hands on the ground. Lift your feet. Yep. Shins parallel to the floor. Pull those thigh bones down and in. Good. You're still rounded through your ribs a little bit. Now push into your fingertips, extend up through your spine, pull the armpits up, long spine, and navel in. Pull everything towards that point of the pelvis. So you're actually drawing everything down and in. And then from there, maybe you float the arms up off of the floor or keep the hands on the floor and play with straightening the legs. Good. Nice, you guys. Beautiful. Keep pulling long through the spine. Armpits lift. Pull those thighs in like that downward facing dog. And then fingers to the floor. Good. Drop the feet, bottoms of the feet together, knees wide, Baddha Konasana. Forward fold. Again, the Baddha Konasana is so that you can start to release through the hip flexors. Good. Come back up, please. Try it one more time, maybe two more times. We'll see. So grab the block this time. Place the block between the upper thighs. Same setup, fingertips back behind you. Balancing on the sit bones. Lift your shins parallel to the floor. Round into your back first. So I said that last time. Do it again. Round into your back a little bit first so that you get this feeling of space in your abdominals, space in your belly. Good. And then lift the shins up off of the floor, squeezing that block. Nice, or whatever you've got. Nice, Lauren. Good. And now hands on the floor still, start to straighten your legs and squeeze that block. Good. And as you straighten your legs, yep, you got to pull the thighs up and in. This is why you keep your hands on the floor first, that you're just working the pelvis. So hands on the floor, Lydia. Good. Straighten the legs. Yep. Press the block, straighten the legs. Press out through your heels, but pull everything up into your pelvis. Keep your chest lifted. I know you want to stay in that really deep V shape. Don't fall outward. Stay up. Good. And then release. Good. Keep the block between the thighs. Bend your knees, plant your feet. Hands are still behind you, fingers pointing towards your heels. Lift up to reverse table. Good. Yeah, so do a little bit of the opposite action, right? Is feel the length of your thighs, front of your thighs. Belly open, chest open. Drag your heels and your hands towards each other. Beautiful. And then release the hips down to the floor. Good. Either keep the block here if you like it, or place it to the side. No judgment. Good. And then a little fun variation on boat pose is to come towards Baddha Konasana. So widen your knees, big toes come together to touch, and then reach for your ankles or your feet. Good. Find that balance point on your sit bones, and then lift your feet up off of the floor, almost like you are balancing in Happy Baby or Baddha Konasana. And then the option is to take the legs out and wide all the way to straight if you'd like, balancing on the sit bones. Good, but maintained. Thighs are pulling in. You're rolling towards that front edge of your pelvis. Long spine, lift your chest. Nice, Joy. Good, and then slowly release. Bring it back to Baddha Konasana. Awesome, you guys. Wow. I know. Scoot forward onto your backs, please. So move forward, come onto your backs. Now, I hate to ruin this for you, but the way we traditionally do boat is considered half boat. So full boat is working from this position on your back. Good. So bring your shins up to parallel, please. Shins parallel the floor, knees bent. Take your arms reaching in the direction of your feet, so straight out from your shoulders, not up to the sky, but straight out from your shoulders. And then begin to lift head, neck, and chest. Again, drawing the ribs and the front of the pelvis towards each other. Lift head, neck, and chest. Long throat. Good. And now maintaining that, start to take the toes down towards the floor a little bit more and start to straighten the legs. Good. Any amount. Good. So just feel that for a moment, a little bit of a different boat pose. You're still squeezing in towards that middle pelvic point. And then go ahead and release, knees in towards your chest. Beautiful. I know. One more. So now keeping the shoulders relaxed, start to stretch your legs out straight up to the sky. Let's do it this way. Squeeze the legs towards each other, point your toes. And then start to lower the legs at an angle towards the floor until they're hovering just an inch or two above the floor. Extend the legs out and down. Keep your ribs engaged. Low belly draws in and up. Top of the pelvis pulls in and up. Relax your shoulders, Lydia. Just do the legs. Just do the legs, Joanne. Good. Point your toes. Bring the legs down, down, down as much as you can. And then pause there. Hands to the floor. Lift head, neck, and chest. Look at your navel. Good. So legs hovering above the floor, looking at your navel. This is considered full boat. Wah, wah. And then slowly release. I know, geez Louise, macaroni and cheese. Bend the knees in towards your chest, circle the knees. Good. Cross your right thigh on top of your left thigh, please. Stacking right knee on top of left, separate the feet, reach for the ankles or the shins. Good, and then just bring the shins together, please. Scoot your hips over to the right, drop your knees to the left. So you're coming into spinal twist with the legs wrapped. If that doesn't feel comfortable, then unwind the wrap and just stack the knees on top of each other. Good, allowing there to be stretch through the belly, through the thighs, through the hips. Good, slowly come back up to center, please, unwinding the legs. And then switch to the other side. Left thigh comes on top of right. Separate the feet, reach for the ankles or the shins, hug in. And keeping your low back pressing down to the floor as you fold through your thigh creases. So again, if we overwork the thighs, we overwork the hip flexors, trying to sustain boat, is this kind of folding in is going to be a nice release to that. And then release the feet, squeeze the shins together, scoot your hips over to the right, over to the left, drop your knees to the right. Spinal twist. Nice. Unwind the legs. Please come back to center. Squeeze the knees in towards the chest. Good. And then as you come into Shavasana, if you would like to take that Shavasana as a supported bridge pose, you can, placing the block back underneath your seat. If you have a blanket or a bolster that you want to roll underneath the knees, if the legs are extended out in front of you, that again can be a nice release for the lower back and the hip flexors if they feel they've overworked. Otherwise, find yourself just resting in Shavasana. So again, you can be in supported bridge pose with the block underneath your sacrum and the knees bent, feet flat, or you can have the legs extended with something rolled underneath the knees for support. Or you can be in Shavasana with nothing, just allowing your spine to settle. And can you ride on your breath? Feeling that your awareness is not pulled into the body, it's not pulled into the moving of the mind, but it keeps that buoyancy, it stays on top. Light. Very gently bring the awareness back to the breath, the wideness of the breath. And begin to let the body stretch and move, moving yourself out of that supported bridge position if that's where you are. And as you're ready, draw the knees in towards your chest. Roll to your right side. And take a moment before you begin to push the floor away. Come back to an upright seated position. Bring the hands together in front of the heart center, palm to palm. Poses like boat that require there to be full body awareness, full body integration, full body participation feel like they're very difficult, and they are. But the more we do them, the more we clarify what it feels like to be completely united and what it feels like to have your whole core, not just bits and pieces of you, holding you up. You get to feel the whole of your strength. And when that doesn't feel foreign to you, then you can move through your life feeling weightless. Because the weight of the world, the weight of your life will no longer drag you into places that you don't wish to be, you don't wish to stay. So boat poses like boat, especially boat, the attitude is that full body effort, stay light in it, because it's giving you the opportunity to be resilient, to be strong, to be buoyant, no matter what happens. So we practice. We practice until it doesn't feel foreign to be light as air. We'll close with the sound of Om, deep breath in. Sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week until I see you again. Tomorrow is my birthday, so do something fun.